And just like normal. What's up, buddy? You gonna chill here while I go work on the car? Alright, I gotta go. You be good. What's going on, boys? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having a good day wherever you are in the world. Today is going to be exciting because I'm finally, I'm gonna try and knock this out. There's no guarantee that I will be able to, but I am working on the E36 finally, and I'm going to try and install this guy. Oh, I'm so stoked for this. So this is, if you didn't catch my last video, this is Turner Motorsports brand new S54 CSL style intake. And if you're new to the channel, you may not know that I have an E36 with an S54 swap with a carbon intake on it already, but it's a cheap one. I'll show you. Bam, there it is. This is the cheap guy. This was an eBay special, it is an eBay special that I got for around like 600 or 700 bucks when we did the swap. And again, there are things that are cheap about it, and I will show you what those things are and how they compare to the Turner and what makes it different. But you'll notice there are a few things that are different on this intake compared to the Turner. So I will show you those when I get this intake off. But for now, what I'm going to do is disconnect these runners, disconnect this, and there's another hose on the bottom that I have to disconnect, and then I'll take this intake off. It's really easy to take off. It's a pain in the butt to put it on. And again, that goes, I think that is mostly due to the way this fits and it being a cheaper intake. But for now, gonna get right into it, take off this intake so we can start on the Turner Motorsport intake in there. Alright, so I'm going to do my best to try and show y'all what a cheap S54 CSL intake is about. And just right off the bat, the carbon feels a lot thinner than the Turner. This carbon feels a lot more fragile. It just doesn't feel as sturdy. It is all carbon, and you can't really... Let me see if I can get a light. So you can kind of see the runners in there. It is all carbon. But again, it's very, very thin. It's a very, very thin piece. And it just feels like it. Second thing I didn't like was where the filter mounts, since it's slope, or since it's like a gradual cone, it was really almost impossible to keep the air filter on there and tight without some sort of like adhesive. And that was the best thing I could do to make that work. And you have to be careful because, you know, whatever you stick there is going to be on the inside of that, so if it breaks off, it'll be going into the air intake. Then overall, just the depth of it, it didn't really fit the car very well. It would sit too high, and that stopped me from being able to run my strut brace, strut tower brace. So that was something that really bugged me, because this Mason Engineering strut tower brace is really sick, and it's made for the S54. It's awesome, but it wouldn't fit with that box. And you can see I tried to make it fit, and it just was always contacting it. Not the best way to do it, but again, just things you have to do with a cheaper intake. And then the actual, I don't know what these are called, but the connections themselves wound up, you can see how they were like molded in these little metal runners. They were like molded into the actual intake itself, and they just basically gave out, and they started spinning on their own. So I used some epoxy to try and seal them to there. I think you can see it better on this one. And it didn't really work that well. It didn't hold. I mean, some of them held, some of them didn't. But again, just didn't really work that well. And the runners, or the boots that I originally had, they were cut kind of short. So, and the metal parts, see if I can get one out. All right, so here's the metal piece that goes in, and you can see it kind of just slides in there, and it came kind of molded into that. But man, they were just, as far as the silicone boot to slip over it, it was just not really, I don't know if it was the wrong size or what it was, but it was a pain in the butt getting these silicone boots on and off. So that's why I'm really stoked with the Turner kit that I got the actual proper boots, because that should make my life a million times easier. But then the fact that these would just kind of spin as well was really a pain in the butt. So again, there's really not too much more to say. There are some ports that I don't use. So like this, I believe, is the oil drain, which just goes right into the oil pan that I don't use. Some of the things like the idle air control hose, the intake air temp, I don't use that stuff, so that's not a problem. They just capped it off. I'll probably end up doing the same with the Turner, but maybe a little neater. But the Turner, you can see, is much better quality. Let me grab my light. The Turner is much better quality. I will be splitting the Turner to put the air filter, so I'll take that off, take the hose or the intake tube off. But it's just, it feels much sturdier, it feels much thicker, it feels like much more of a solid piece. And then the runners themselves, or the I don't know why I call them runners, or if they're even called runners, but the ports themselves, just, you know, being part of the manifold makes it so much nicer. The lip isn't as big, and you know, I actually have the boots, the proper boots this time, so that's going to make my life a million times easier. But overall, I mean, this feels like, it feels exponentially better. Way better. Again, I was running the cheap intake for over a year, probably about a year, and I've been on track with it. It works fine. The intake noise is fine. As far as performance, I didn't really do it before, but like I said, or as you guys probably know, this car made roughly 312 wheel horsepower and 260 wheel torque on Alpha N. But now I am running a CSL tune with an S54 HP ECU and a map sensor as well. So I am running map, and I'll be running this CSL intake. But for now, all I'm trying to do is figure out if I should plug those ports or how I want to go about it. If I want to order stuff to kind of adjust how the car is currently set up, because the way it sits right now, I have this green filter connecting to the bottom of my idle air or idle control valve hose. So I don't have this full hose, and I need to figure out if I should order that. And yeah, I need to figure out a few things, which means I need to contact the right people to figure out how I want to set this new airbox up. All right, boys, it's been a few days, as you can tell from the beard growth. But what we ended up going with is I have the idle control valve hose. Like I said, that will replace that piece right there. And then I did find some caps to plug up some of the ports here. The only one I'm waiting on is this. This is for the intake air sensor, which I have right now running through my brake duct actually. So I'm not gonna relocate that. I'm gonna cap this. This is where the idle control valve hose will go. This goes down to the oil pan. Let me flip this over if I can, without spilling everything. I have this port right here capped because I won't be using that, so that's good. And then, yeah, so I have that port capped since I won't be using this. This port I will use, so really the only thing I need to do now is wait for my cap to show up for this, which I ordered last night, and then find a couple of bolts to screw in here because I'm not using that mounting bracket, which generally goes down in there. I've never had it, I don't need it, so I have to plug those up as well. Once I do that, then I will get on replacing that hose, wait for the caps to show up, get those holes plugged, and then we'll be able to mount this thing and should be good to go. All right, boys, so sit rep, it is a new day, and here's what I spent most of yesterday on and what I was stuck on. So, if you remember, I had, let me turn this around so I can see, I had this new ICV hose, the idle control valve hose, which mounts right here, and it attaches to the ICV port on the intake manifold, which is that one right there that is capped off. So that is the ICV port. And basically what happened is the connector to the bottom of the intake manifold hits these oil lines that are run to my oil cooler. Now, the S54 oil cooler is an addition, it's part of the swap. And basically when you do that, since I went aftermarket oil cooler, you may have to, you have to go aftermarket. I don't know if there is an OEM oil cooler that you can get, but since I went with a Zionsville radiator, which has, and I opted for a Zionsville oil cooler as well, we had to get custom made oil lines. So those oil lines, you can see those oil lines down there, the braided lines. So those are attached to this. Now they're a little long, so I can't rotate these down any more than they're at now. And that causes the idle control valve, this little attachment right there, that causes that to hit this and make it unable to be installed. I tried everything I could by loosening this to rotate these a little bit, but those hoses, they're metal hoses, they're just too long, so I can't rotate those down. So I went back to the green filter, and now since I went back to that, I should be able to just cap off the ports I'm not going to use. And again, that's the way I was running it earlier. So I capped off the ports I'm not going to use, and now install should be fairly straightforward. So I'm going to get that half of the intake manifold just bolted on, and I will catch up with you guys after I get that done. All right, boys, so now that I'm not battling the oil lines, this thing popped in really, really easily. The Turner boots, those are great. Everything just popped in way, way easier than it is putting this guy in. But again, not to say that's bad. Well, it's not great, but this thing did work. It worked well, but this is just a much higher quality piece. So anyway, got it all mounted, have the ports that I don't use blocked off. I got the filter installed. Now I'm just going to grab the horn part. There are two little tabs, right? One right there and one further back. You get the bottom of the horn piece in those tabs and then push it over the mounting location. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm definitely going to need both hands, so I'll see you guys in a second. All right, so got the snorkel, well, not snorkel, got the horn, whatever, mounted up in there. That was a little bit of a pain in the butt because, like I said, on the underside you have to get those two prongs that mount the bottom piece of this to that, and then you can insert or fold the top over and insert the screws. That's probably one of the biggest pain in the butt parts. I mean, it's not a big deal whatsoever. So now my only thing I want to look for is to mount my strut tower brace, and fingers crossed that fits. I really will be bummed out if that doesn't fit. All right, boys, it is now the third, I think, and final day of this install. Got it all wrapped up last night, and let me show you what was done and why it took a little extra time. So, got the strut tower bar installed. Everything is good there, but there were two issues. First, it is slightly hitting right here. And again, there's nothing I can do about that, because if you see, the horn is really close to hitting this. Well, it's not super. If I lower this at all anymore, then it will be hitting there. And that is part of what you get when you put aftermarket parts on a swapped car. There's nothing that says that this intake will fit this engine in this car. There just isn't. Well, now there is. And if you're not going to run a strut tower bar like I am, then you're completely fine. But the other issue I was having was, again, swapped car with aftermarket parts. I'm running E85, or an E85 kit. The way that E85 kit works is by installing these, not new injectors, but almost like injector adapters, and it raises this fuel injector harness up a little bit. And when I was doing that, it was actually hitting, or when I was trying to put this on, this was actually hitting that. It's not anymore. There's a little bit of room in there, but before, when I was trying to install it, The strut tower bar was actually hitting this, and when I would tighten it, it would force it down a lot. I didn't want that. So what I had to do was kind of move this in a different position than what it was. But now we have this installed, we have the box installed, everything is good. Now it's just basically cleanup time, and then I can do the first start. I can't actually drive the car because I got no seats. So I'm gonna spend a little time cleaning up the engine bay because I got a ton of crap in there that I don't want in there. So I'm gonna clean everything up, and then I will give you guys a start, and that's basically where we're gonna end this one. But I do want to see how it sounds and if it makes any difference just on startup, like just audibly. So be right back. Alrighty boys, it's looking a lot better up in here. Got all the tools cleaned up. Everything should be good. So I reconnected the battery, and now we're gonna try and give it a startup for the first time. Again, I won't be able to go for a drive, no interior, but let's see how this thing sounds on startup. See if there's any difference between this and the cheapie. Well, I would consider that a success, and the bummer of the story is I won't be able to drive it. Again, just starting it with no seat is, well, just weird. But everything looks and feels great. It sounds great just on startup. I mean, I hate to do this to you guys, but to be continued. I'll drive this as soon as I can. Until now, I'm stoked with this. Let me make sure everything closes. Yeah, everything closes good. God, I miss this car. I cannot wait for the interior to be done so I can get this whole thing out and show you guys. I mean, the intake plus the seats. Gosh, this thing is such a sick car. I love this thing. Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. If you're interested in that carbon fiber intake, it is sick. And if you are installing it on an E46, you're not gonna have any of the issues I had. Again, for my stuff, installing aftermarket parts on a car that's been swapped is always kind of a toss-up. It's just one of those things. So it fits, it works, everything's good. I just need to get the seats back. If you're new to the channel, guys, smash that subscribe. I hope you guys are having a good day, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.